11-page stories. Written through L.T. Zupan. Read by L.T. Zupan. Story number 3. Living in the marrow. 1. The last venomous spider died today. This powerful phrase was now being spread about the world. And yes, it definitely was catchy, and catching fast. The last venomous spider died today. This virtual compulsoratoria, a dense celebratory soupçon of kitsch, originally came down the reels from the last leader of the planet, a dear, fair, and prudent woman. Now that that final, large, venomized spider had perished in pungent misery, the world was devoid of any purpose that necessitated leadership. And so dawned an era of leaderlessness, and this was a good thing. Perfection was finally underway. Under a perfect way, that is. 2. It was another fantastical and regal day, the 1000th one in a straight row. Jamie Holmestalms woke up naturally and at just the right time. His home was a construction of glass, stone, and various organic compounds that merged with the treetops, all maybe 180 feet up, above the soft grounds of the planet Verticent. If you asked, and you probably might, no one in the world they called Verticent would be reticent to notify you that it was, albeit newly achieved, a frizzante, sparkling, and effervescent utopia. And though it was the youngest of utopias, maybe even a virgin utopia, it was a paradise destined to last. A pair of dice that always seemed to roll 11. 3. After getting out of his uber-cushy heavenly bed, Jamie was faced with a two-pronged outcomed choice, or decision, or incision, and par for the course, as always, both outcomes were highly desirable. But he did have to choose one. It was either go out to the soft red-orange sunny day, or stay inside and hook up to his gratifying technology machine. It was his main one. He stopped and thought for a while, munching on a Belgian waffle cone. Plenty of time and plenty of pleasure to just sit here and think a while. 4. Through due time, he eventually decided to go out first. The home technology fund could come later and after, not that there weren't great gadgets outside too, of course. Jamie's front door burst open, and his heart collided with the freshly raked, trollopy, trapsy trot of a well-juiced villa. What we would call city blocks here on Earth were more like circuits of electrical lifelines in the towns cohabitating the Verticents. It shot Jamie up to a gallivant, a bright gleed measure of home stance. He walked to the left on his home avenida to arrive at the first cross-section and jumped onto the water tunnel slide, flying forward. To the marina. Marina being both the name of his girl that was a friend and a place that we would maybe call the beach. 5 Knock, knock, he said, as he knocked thrice on Marina's mellow, pale yellow shale door. It was a mini ritual of constant, repeated, mellifluous and mellow exuberant passion. day in and day out. Her shuffling was bold and legible in its magical quietude. He waited literally, quite like a quiet fox. In front of Jamie's perched body, Marina plunged her entrance door wide and stood in a firm star shape, presented before him. She looked like a damn golden Charizard, after all. Well, look who it is, Jamie said, smiling. Yes, it's just me, Toothy grinning back. They were the best of old good friends. Do you want to go to the marina? Why, of course, Mr. Holmes. Isn't it the same thing we do every night? Try to take over the fucking world. Whatever. Just get your designs ready, Pinky, because I don't have any cab fare for us today, you know? And somehow, impossibly, his grin even widened, so... 6... Unlike your home planet of Earth, dear readers, Verdicent's trees and forests include the entire variegated versicolor palettes of Callie's litoscopes and phosphorus sulfur-tinged, solder-welded, dioxide spectrals to boot. From violet to pink, you've got it all there, just ripe for your eye candy's child of taking. And this is what strode by fast in the streamy periphery, as Jamie and Marina Z made their way off to their bluest of second green homes. 7... Cabs were truly a slightly funny ongoing joke for the two of them, for many reasons. The most ostensible being that the water's edge was only a 14-minute walk away. Still, along the way, there was much density packed into every kilometer. Though they flew fast, one by one their many friends and neighbors popped out of the treetop scrub brush, just to toss a quick hola their way. It was a light-heartening and charging affair of a growth. A few twists, curves, and jingles, and they began to feel the soft rush that is descent. The slope shallowed wide like, a statistic born from the forest mind's contemplates. At the bottom there was a puzzling video game-like arrangement of stones, jutting out of the river's stream, which led to the main body of salty water, the Verta Sea. They pogged adept, stepping fast and easy with almost jumps, from one rock to the next, only to arrive at the old sandy grove. 8... A small, sandy, pre-adolescent elephant found itself rudely interrupted by the pair of people walking onto the beach. Jamie and Mary. It rolled around a little, trying to pretend it didn't need to quit, even though it didn't, and finally stood upright, flexing the great power of its species. This was a strong and small male elephant that needed no name. Marina Z could remember the time when humans and animals had started to learn each other's respective languages. And it was not too far away back into the past. Still, the elephants really did prefer not to have the names humans seemed to love to clothe themselves in. Hi there, little strong one. Jamie muttered and expressed the corollary unspoken elephantine version of the phrase simultaneously. After a fair reception, the little elephant responded. Hello, hungry people. Do you want some more cheesy bread? There were two folds to the purpose of this statement, both of dire importance, to playfully mock the two human people, first and foremost, and to ask for any kind of cheese they might have, very important. 9... Jamie and his dear friend, and the playful little elephant, spent many hours in the old sandy grove that cool day, which was common for them to do with no real schedule that needed to be kept and a ton of enjoyment to be had. The climax on that specific day came when the light red sun was setting. The two best friends snuggled into the royal blue sand, cozy equally with each other and cozy with the warm earth. Time seemed to stand still and the horizon stretched out before them. It painted every layer of distance in an incalculable, numberless Google plexus of silver reflection slivers. in each other's arms at one point. Jamie gave in to the severe delight of nostalgia and asked Marina, "Do you remember the first time you went into the real world?" He was referring to a technology helmet that sent people off into something like a virtual world. Except it was more real and textured than the best of any dream you may have had. Yes, it was just a few months after my first cat died. I put the headset on and I didn't bother to fiddle with the equalizer first. So it just went so crazy random on me. She was grinning again. So what happened? Where'd you go? To the greeny aerobic moons. Emotionally speaking, mainly. Uh-huh. He processed and progressed. Then what? Then I was in a huge kitten field. Golden wheat rolled up in the background and boxed in by the rusty chains of a barbie wire fence. The sharp yellow sun almost permeated up from ground through all the burnt white grass. There's no way to house that feeling. I will tell you that. Still smiling intensely. The only thing missing was a dang cottage. Jamie smiled back, and it finally matched the power of Marina Z's beamy simper. 10 ... And so it was time for town dinner. Jamie Holmstall's hometown was not an extraordinary one, at least not for the world of Verticent. Just another fair-sized metropolis of about 880,000. Marina Z had gone back home for the evening, and Jamie was in the main city square watching the smells and steams wafting, chortling, spinning, and puffing out of the billowy town cookery. The smells were calling and invoking, but more so invoking and less so calling. There were some things the townsfolk enjoyed doing in large groups, and this notion had developed many of them into having a community mind, collective, telepathic, common, and the servant of 1,001 delights. For now, though, it was time for just a simple, hearty meal together. The pink, puffy possum trebles were much more delectable than their name credited. They were herbivores and rather vicious to the computer-generated plants they murdered and consumed. It was important that the trabbies were medicated, but still alive when the villagers ate into them, because otherwise there would be no satisfacting for the little one's masochisms. Assuredly shocking to outsiders, and perfectly natural to insiders, it was and always is. 11 ... After the CGR vegetable soup desserts of appropriately measured flavor value and nutrient content were finished and sizzling in their breakdowns, landlorded in the bellies of volleying verticentisans, the true magic began. The Prosopopeia exemplar apotheosis of atmospheric late-night atomic starlight, strewn, spun shadowgrass, for the treasured stillness and the memory awe of blank forested soul, began. As allegedly usual, it was another humbly perfect stanza of a night, which came from Lord knows where. Fire spinning, as it was known to be called in the world of Earth, had evolved here generations ago to a form of cosm spinning. And there was much more than multidimensionality involved. 12 ... Jamie H. woke up the next day. His head was filled with gobs of orange-brown ceroplasmic overload from the extensive night before. Vet had had quite a party. It had been one fucking orchid of a night, as they always say. He sat up and shook his head. Thoughts of the new pleasures of this day, that he could, and soon easily, readily would, induce and intake, spewed through his cranial cantankerity. He stood up and strutted over to the fucking balcony. He phased through the closed door velvetly, yet unsurreptitiously. Why even have a door, he sometimes wondered. The baby falcons were chirruping the morning song of a new day's eve. Marina sent a little meaningless optical telepathy his way, and he was filled with her delightful Kobe beefsteakery strength. It was just so clearly time to plug in that old headset, to shoot off and June up out of here. Juno. 13 ... He closed his eyes. The ruby-tunneled walls around him began to transfix and pulse methodically. He was beamed to the hope of his own designs, and pretty instantaneously. It was a fair piece of machinery, developed over the recent millennia. Visions of sports and war that had fluttered and filtered by on the scenery-scapes on the electric glass tunnel walls on his way to his destination were now luminously fading. He was statent, composed, soliloquer, battering an eye, and a blink wasn't wasted for the worst of it, honestly. 14 ... Centuries before, the verdescent peoples, and many other species for that matter, had outgrown sex. But the many thereby attached emotional and otherwise experiential things were still appreciated and verily enhanced by the headset our main character, Jamie Holmstolms, now donned. Enhanced beyond what you or I can fathom, in fact. The landing this resulted in, then, was a non-sexual, yet gunpowdery, ivorically intimate one. The programming knew how to oscillate, and it knew impossibly well. It was an adjective that forgave every adverb, a collusion of the Hierophant Dolly, the sanguine Madonna, and the Hieronymus Bosch. The scenarios, rests, changelings, and homecomings were. It defied the need of description. It was so perfect. Yet this was just another standard day for the Verticent they named Jamie H. 15 ... And so he sang of the love of the falling of love, falling in the meadowlark's ethereal, ephemeral, etrameticular tubulations, for another hours or so, and found his way coming back to the home that was after the one he had quenched into and through before. No need of landscape to press his boots down on upon. No need of contextual carvings, nor the polyps of swift story swells. No need of the 72 virgins' coes, which was never their self before, during, or after their highest of melodic emotional poetry, fit into unknown and self-discovering circuits of built-in embrace. He had danced this dance 1,000 times before, and it always grew further. It never grew old or tacky or obsolete. In fact, its desperation not to do so is what fueled its very progression into grandeur and preciouser elegance. He took the main head unit off and set it down. He sighed, a sigh of relief and satisfaction, and then he looked around and thought. It was only late afternoon, and he was unquestionably not tired at all. He smiled. It had taken the teachers 3 to 5 weeks to learn to look at the shirt sideways back in middle school, and he suspected that it would be no different now. 17 ... So after a long snack, Jamie went on a stranger walk. To do this, one needed to travel first, at least as far as another city. It was a limbo, awful, dreadfully simple affair, likely likenable to trick-or-treating on planet fucking Earth or somewhere. You just walked down the avenidas and knocked on strangers' doors. Soon you found someone who had nothing to do, and they would take you in just to shoot the toothpicks, as I bet you call it. On this go-around, it only took Jamie 5.5 houses before someone intook, all hosty and such, as they will. Jamie crossed the threshold of the Star Ranger's house. He crept down to his bent and pulled a shoe off its heel, then followed by the other one he did. A pretty rain started outside as the door was politely slammed closed. Typically 30 to 45 minutes was the most one would stay at each new house, just enough to get a basic portrait of the stranger's life and to offer an outline of their own in return. 18 dash dash dash. Would you like a glass of tea, Jamie? I have Uri G. Marrowmont, chrysanthemum coconut, Driscoll parsnip, root. Let me just stop you right there, Bob. Not a big tea drinker? Not today. What about a snack? Just ate. They weren't exactly hitting it off. Why'd you get a divorce, Bob? Career path divergence. Who got to keep the pets? I did. And they both laughed. 19 dash dash dash. By the time he got to his 8th house, Jamie was dog-tired, per as the saying goes. Maybe at the 4th house he was just pheasant-tired. You get my mean. So what can I say? Jamie was utterly fulfilled with his life and with his week. He achieved a plungely deep appreciation for humanity by the end of every stranger walkabout. But it was impossibly better every time, except that it was possible, like damn near everything in his huge, magnificent world. He pondered by a pond, stacked into its brims with palm fronds. Crickets walloped and sea chessels crescened. Nobody played chess anymore, not even any of its very many derivatives. The subject of his mindfulness was that of the future. Just where would Verdescent be in another 8 years? Another 1,000? They had breached into a point of positive exponentiation nearly a decade ago, well before the death of that last venomous spider, and everybody knew it. The collective focus of the planet was not on some kind of sci-fi trip, however. Hell, they were not even so much as interested these days in accomplishments. It was more about long-durational gratification and the actuation of an always greater heaven-on-earth type thing. This had clearly begun in Jamie's assessment, but where would it be in 5 or 8 years? He threw a soft, flattened, cratery, ovalescent stone into the pond, stood up, and walked away, happy. It was another inundant day, chock full of so many fabulous accomplishments. 20 dash dash dash. The last venomous spider was buried today. It was given a green burial, 21 feet under the ground, and is decaying. It is destined to serve as a fertilizer for future shrubbery and various other insignificant, impersonal, idiosyncratic flotsam and bric-a-bracs. Meanwhile, the rest of us are nurturing and fertilizing something far better than perfect.